Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to examine one of the more extreme lenses that I've looked at. It may not look like it as I hold this compact little lens in my hand, but this is a 10 to 18 millimeter zoom lens designed not for APS-C, but to cover the full frame image circle designed for Sony FE or full frame mirrorless. And so this gives you what is, for at least in my experience, the widest angle of view with a reticular, not fisheye, but a square rectangle look at the world at 10 millimeters, which is incredibly wide. So in today's video, we're going to take a first look at this lens from Venus Optics. It is the Laowa 10 to 18 millimeters, and this is an F4.5 to F5.6 variable aperture zoom lens, 10 to 18 millimeters. And so going from extraordinarily wide to just very wide. And so we're going to jump in and take a look at the build and the design, some of the features of this lens, and give you a little better sense of how it operates. So let's jump in and let's take a look. Now, of course, you look at the size of this lens and you look at the focal length of 10 to 18 millimeters, and you would not be wrong in drawing an initial conclusion and saying, yeah, that's got to be an APS-C lens. I mean, that is much wider than what almost any lens is on full frame, particularly in a rectangular or square non-fisheye design. And and beyond that, its size is tiny compared to lenses that try to cover an equivalent focal length on full frame. However, this is in fact a full frame lens, and it is another incredibly unique lens from Laowa. And so we'll take a look at some of the physical design and features here. And so as you can see, unlike most Laowa lenses, there is an additional ring here, and that is of course a zoom ring. Now there is a very minor kind of pulse in and out, as you can see at the front. Nothing ever exceeds obviously the built-in actual lens hood, but there is our kind of point of deepest retraction is between 14 and 13 millimeters, and at 10 millimeters come forward a little bit, and then at 18 millimeters come forward a little bit. So you have a manual aperture ring here that allows you to control that. Now you do have an option here where you can either have traditional clicks, and so you can have stops defined there, or you can declick the aperture, and so you can smoothly move through your aperture. Not much of a big aperture opening there, so you're not going to see it much, but you can just smoothly move between your aperture stops, and so, or without any kind of aperture stop at all. So always a nice option, particularly for video work. And then towards the front of the lens, you have a very nicely damped, nice traveling manual focus ring. And as you can see, of course, this is all of a manual focus. Everything is made out of metal here. As a byproduct of that, while the lens is extremely compact, it is only 70 millimeters around, or 2.76 inches, and it is 3.58 inches long, or 90.9 millimeters. So it's extremely compact, and yet it does have some heft to it. It weighs about a pound, or 496 grams, and that is due to the fact that everything is metal and glass, very high grade of construction here. Now, of course, as I spoke about being compact, the only lens that I can think of that comes to mind that is somewhat similar in focal length is Canon has an 11 to 24 millimeter f4. And so that lens does have a little bit bigger maximum aperture. But to give you a comparison, that lens is 108 millimeters around instead of 70 millimeters, and it is 132 millimeters long. And so is literally half again as long, and it weighs 2.6 pounds, or 1,180 grams, and so over 2.5 times as big. And so this is an extremely compact lens that, while there is no like weather sealing in terms of gaskets, they do have what they call their frog eye coating that is supposed to repel dust and moisture from that front element, also to make it easier to clean. The other thing is that back here, part of the lens design is a built-in filter. And so this is a 37 millimeter filter. And so you can filter this lens, and you can change filters. So for example, I do have a ND filter here. And so you can swap out that filter. You're going to want to make sure that you have as thin a filter as possible, and make sure that you get it screwed all the way down, and I did this to my detriment. I was out in the cold and I didn't screw this filter down as far as what I should, and I ended up with some pretty atrocious vignette as a byproduct. And so you're going to want to get it screwed down as much as possible. You do have to use a filter, either the filter that comes with it or an additional filter, because that element of that filter is actually part of the optical formula. But the cool thing is that you can filter this lens from the rear, and and so even though it's extraordinarily wide, you can use inexpensive filters. It is a little bit of a challenge sometimes to get that seated and started to the threads to bite, because you don't really want to be touching the actual glass surface, obviously. And so anyway, that is a unique option around that. There are two things left that I would like to point out about the kind of the physical design of this. You can actually focus down very closely with this lens. You can focus down to only right under 6 inches or 15 centimeters. And so at 18 millimeters, and remember that is from this point right here, that's where the sensor is, that's why it's marked on a camera. And so we're only talking about a little less than 6 inches from there. So very, very close, but you get a 0.25 times magnification, which is a very high and obviously a very useful figure. The other thing is that they have really purposely designed to create really beautiful sun stars, knowing that with such a wide angle of view, the sun will often be in the frame. And so there is 5 aperture blades, which is somewhat unique, but it's designed to where you get really, really fantastic looking 10-point sun stars. And so that's a bonus here. This lens is going to come to the market only for Sony FE. You can use it on Sony APS-C, obviously, but it is designed to cover the full frame image circle. That's the most practical place to use it. And so you can get this lens for $849 in the US market when it comes to market. And so it is not cheap, but at the same time, the Canon lens that I alluded to is $3,000. So it gives you an idea of the extreme nature of this. One thing that I will add just as a physical observation, as a criticism, it's a problem that Laowa has with some of their other caps, and that is that you're going to want to put gaffer tape or something in there because, it does not stay on. And this, of course, is a brand new lens. It does not stay on there at all. As you can see, I mean, there are a few quirks. This lens cap is definitely something, if I owned the lens, I would do some modifications to make sure that it would grip a little bit better. You can do that fairly easily, just put kind of a foam tape in there that would provide just a little bit of extra compression to hold that on. Otherwise, plan on losing that really quickly, and you don't want to do that. And beyond that, of course, you do have no electronics, and so you are going to be dealing with, all of the stuff that comes with having no EXIF data. But I mean, this is not designed to be a mainstream lens. And so if you will stay tuned, I'll come back to you with a second episode where I'll look at the image quality in more detail and also give you a final verdict and tell you who I think this lens is for and who it's not for. And so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, I do have an image gallery that you can take a peek at down below. I haven't shot a ton with this lens, and my schedule's not going to allow me to do a whole lot, but I do have some images there for you to look at, and I've mostly had to shoot with evaluation in mind. And so, but take a look at that and you might see some things that, give you a sense of whether or not it's something that you would be interested in. You can also find buying links if you'd like to purchase one for yourself. And of course, as always, you can follow me on social media, become a patron, become a subscriber. And if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.